We're into the dog days, so let's cool off by answering questions that $5 supporters asked in June. If you have questions for July, links are below. Let's start on Subscribestar, where FunwithFacts asks, Hi Shane, what is your response to statist claims that things like the ozone layer are examples of government regulations working? Oh yeah, the hole in the ozone layer. I remember that crap. What happened was that, during the 1940s, there was an unusual amount of volcanic activity in the world. The U.S. Geological Survey has done a lot of work on how volcanic activity can change the ozone layer. That put a lot of ozone-depleting chemicals into the atmosphere that stayed there for decades. But you never heard that. All you heard was that it was CFCs that were doing it, because at the same time, air conditioning became more ubiquitous. And that sort of coincidence is all that's needed for the people who want to control your life, even though we now know that CFCs don't actually stay in the atmosphere all that long. We only have the levels we do today because, despite the worldwide phase-out, a lot of people in a lot of places are still using them despite the bans. But either way, whether it's from volcanoes or CFCs, those levels have been decreasing, and yet the so-called hole in the ozone layer, which is really an area of low ozone above Antarctica, is getting bigger. In fact, just over the last 5 years, it's gotten bigger than it's ever been. Exactly the opposite of what's supposed to happen. See the link in the description. It's almost like the hole in the ozone layer is a natural phenomenon relating to a polar landmass and not anything humans have been doing. By the way, if you hear anyone conflating this issue with greenhouse gases and global warming, just ignore them, because those two things have absolutely nothing to do with each other, and they're only displaying their ignorance. It's very similar to what we saw with phosphates. The US, Europe, and Australia have been banning phosphates from detergents over the last 20 years due to environmental concerns. The thing is, most of the phosphates don't come from our drains, since our drains go to either wastewater treatment facilities or septic tanks. The pollution was actually caused by runoff from farms, which use phosphorus-based fertilizers. So it didn't make any difference at all, except our laundry and dishes are tougher to clean. Phosphorus binds with dirt and suspends it in water, and that's especially important in areas with hard water. So the detergents we have now actually cost more and don't clean as well. Like so many government regulations, none of these have evidence behind them. But who needs evidence when you can back it up with violence? Tomasz Urbański asks, Hello, are you interested in doing an interview or other collaboration with AFL, Atheists For Liberty representative? If so, what's the best way to contact you? I'm not familiar with them, but sure, I'm up for it. The best way to contact me is on Discord, either by going to the Bogosity or Lord Killian Discord servers or DMing me at ShaneDK. And finally, over on Patreon, Darth Vega asks, Can you respond to the first 10 minutes of this video? And he links to the video. I'll summarize it as I answer his question here because it's another creationist video that, as usual, trots out the same old long-debunked crap yet another time. Do you agree, Shane, that this kind of logic should lead someone to conclude that there's no way for a baby to turn into an adult because nothing improves? This is the old argument from complexity, that complex things never develop from less complex things. Never mind the fact that we see this happen all the time. One big example is emergence, a classic example being the flock of starlings. Hundreds of thousands of starlings flock together in these amazingly complex patterns, and yet this can be duplicated in a simulator by having each starling follow only 4 simple rules and only consider its 7 nearest neighbors. It's not even that hard. So, yes, an individual going from a baby to an adult is a perfect example of this happening when you look at the biology of everything that's going on, and especially the development of the brain. Everything Comfort says can't happen does. If he were correct, we should be born fully developed and only degrade as we age, instead of growing to a certain point and then starting to degrade. The main issue is that he's confusing complexity with specificity. If you start with a perfectly ordered deck of cards and shuffle them, they'll get reordered into more and more complex sequences. The fact that it'll get into one of these sequences is inevitable, but the chances that they'll get into one particular sequence is so incredibly unlikely we wouldn't expect it to by chance. So a creationist might point to the shuffled deck and talk about how unlikely it is for the deck to have resulted in that particular sequence when it was going to have ordered itself into some sequence. And that's a problem with things like the 747 argument. Why would the result need to be a Boeing 747 specifically, or even an airplane? Life didn't start out with goals, and evolution doesn't occur today with goals. It just doesn't work that way. The real response to the question of why complexity arises from non-complexity is, why shouldn't it? What mechanism is there that stops a system from gaining complexity? What mechanism enforces homogeneity? And the creationists just don't have one. He also uses the old trope about entropy being order moving to disorder, even though that's not what it is. It means that every time you do work, some of the energy is lost as heat. Not all of the energy in a system can be used. Yeah, it's the same old long-debunked creationist crap. Just as a reminder, and I have tons of older videos going into this in detail, so check them out, whenever you have an exothermic reaction, the entropy of whatever it is spontaneously goes down, which the creationist straw man of thermodynamics says is impossible. One example creationists like to use is rust, but rust is a process of oxidation, which is exothermic. Rust reduces the entropy of iron, not increases it. These local decreases can happen because they produce heat and therefore increase the entropy of their surroundings by a greater degree. And that way happens with life. Life and evolution don't violate thermodynamics. We're thermodynamic engines. Then he goes into no book can write itself, therefore DNA is impossible without a creator, even though they're nothing alike. And even, yes, the I can't evolve, even including the old quote mine of Darwin. The part that really exposes Comfort for the horribly dishonest human scum he is when he makes fun of Richard Dawkins for having help setting up his demonstration of the I and how it can easily evolve step by step. Comfort said he should have just waited for it to spontaneously form from nothing. Of course, Comfort knows full goddamn well that's not what evolution says. And also, that would make any experiment impossible. Experiments are how you set up the situation for a natural process to be demonstrated. No experiment has ever been deemed invalid because a scientist had to have help setting it up. Not before Ray Comfort, anyway. After all this time, they have nothing new. So thanks so much for watching. Comments for the comment god, shares for the share throne. Please hit like, subscribe, and the bell, and check out other videos on my channel and like and share them as well. And of course, go to donate.bogosity.tv for all sorts of ways to support, including PayPal, Venmo, and various cryptocurrencies, or become a regular supporter at Patreon, Subscribestar, and Discord to get these videos early and ad-free, and participate in live streams and AMAs like this one. Thanks again, and until next time, stay strong and be free.